You know, when you're pregnant of your first child, you always have all these things going on and you're super excited and you have all these pictures and all these stories and you have a pregnancy book and you have literally everything. When you're pregnant of your second child, you're still very excited, but somehow life got really busy meanwhile and you find yourself not having anything. If you can relate to that, then this video is for you. Hi everyone, my name is Kat. I'm currently pregnant with my second baby and we are already on the third trimester. This video is very much overdue, but like I said, life is very busy. For my first child, I had a video of me finding out I was pregnant. We were trying for a few months. I was testing every month. And then I had a few Nest With Me videos and all of those things happening here on the channel. And I was keeping a pregnancy journal as well for myself. I don't think I've ever shared, but I did spend a few hours assembling it because I did it from scratch from a notebook. However, on this second baby, I feel really bad, but I don't really have anything. I don't have a pregnancy journal. I don't have weekly photos like I was doing with my first one. I do try and make a conscious effort every now and then to remember and take some pictures, at least in the mirror, just so I can keep track of my bump growing, but I don't have anything. I do have, however, 2 clips that I recorded months ago, right in the beginning of the pregnancy, of me telling you how I found out, how I was feeling. I believe I was on my way to a scan or something, and I've recorded 2 clips only, and I believe they're on the same day. So what you're about to see is going to be a throwback to the past. I thought I have those clips, so might as well edit them and share them. So let's go to the past. Let's let past Kat tell you how about it was finding out I was pregnant this time around. And then let's come back to the future and I'll tell you pretty much everything that I can remember from this pregnancy and what has happened meanwhile. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm recording this video. I feel bad that for baby number 1, I had like this whole thing planned out on which videos I was going to record, and I had the reaction of me testing for months, and on this one several times I thought, let me pick up the camera and record just in case this test ends up being positive, but I never did. We were just in a different phase of life where everything was very busy. Also, I'm recording this inside the car and it's very, very hot. So let's start in the beginning. It took us a bunch of months again, I think around 7 cycles, which was the same that took us with baby number 1, so I guess that cycle number 7 is our lucky cycle. So I don't know how to get into this video and sharing details without it being too much, so I'm just gonna try and say the basic, and then if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I am currently still very early, so by the time you're gonna see this, it's gonna be much later, but at the moment I think I'm like 5 weeks and 2 days or 3 days, so very, very early. We have just moved to Portugal, so the healthcare here for pregnancy is very different from what I'm used to in the UK. I think I need to turn on the car and get some AC going, because otherwise I'm gonna get all sweaty. Oh my god, is it too loud? Imagine I record this whole thing and then find out that it's too loud. But honestly, I don't think I have a choice. Let me lower it a little bit. I hope it's not too loud. So, the pregnancy care follow-up here is very different from what I got used to with the first baby. So I'm not gonna get into too much detail about that right now. I'm just gonna tell you how I found out. So on the cycle that I found out, I started testing on 8 DPO. Usually I start on 7, but realistically no one's gonna get a positive test at 7 DPO, I think. With baby number 1, I started on 7, and 7 and 8 were negative, and I got a positive on 9 DPO. So with this baby, I was gonna wait until 9 DPO. But you know how one is, and those 2-week wait is terrible. Even though I never make it to the 2-week, because at that point you'd start testing at 14 DPO. Anyway, so I started testing at 8 DPO instead of 7. Look at me going. And it was negative. And then I tested again the following day at 9 DPO and it was negative. And at that point, I got very bummed out because 9 was when I got the positive with the other pregnancy. So at 9 DPO, I was obsessively looking at the test. I think I even did 2 that morning, and I was looking with a flashlight and all those weird angles that one does. Negative. Completely white, blank, no question about it. But I was still like hoping, like, come on, there has to be something. I even went and looked a few hours later, which you're not supposed to do. But with my first pregnancy, on the 8 DPO, where it's still negative, later that evening, I picked up the test again and it had a faint line on it, which I disregarded because it had been a bunch of hours, but then the following day it was positive. So I did the same with this one at 8 DPO, 9 DPO actually. I stared at it a few hours later, nothing, absolutely nothing. So on 10 DPO, I thought I was not even gonna test, because like, who gets a positive at 10 DPO? It's very late. I would have got a positive by now already. But then I told myself, just take one more test, just for peace of mind at 10 DPO. And that morning, oh my god, there was the faintest line. I thought I was going crazy. I wasn't recording any of this. I wasn't prepared to see the line there. I thought I was going crazy. It was so faint, way fainter
than it was at 9 DPO with my previous pregnancy. I dipped another one of those cheapies and the line was there and I was like, oh my god, what is happening? So I had one digital clear blue with me and I dipped that in the same urine still, so it was the first morning urine. And as it was loading, you know how it is, it has those bars that flash, and as it was loading I was telling myself, you know, it's gonna say not pregnant because that line is so faint, the line that you're seeing, that first of all it's probably a lie, and second, even if it isn't, there's no way you would catch it. So I was there and I was like doing other things like washing my face, brushing my teeth while the test loaded, and then I started looking at it when it was loading the last square, and then it just flashed saying pregnant. And I was like, what the hell? How is this possible? The line is so faint. And I had all these plans because I'm not with my husband at the moment and I was not going to see him for like another 2 weeks or something at that point. I had all these plans that if for some reason I got a positive test, how would I going to tell him? And prepare something really nice, like getting TJ a t-shirt or something saying older brother. Didn't happen. The second that test flashed saying pregnancy, I just rang him and I showed him on the camera and he was like, what the hell? Let me show you. So I don't have the tests with me, but I can show you the pictures that I took back then. So this was at 10 DPO when I first got those positives. As you can see on the strip test, I'll put a picture on the screen as well, this picture here. On those strip tests, the cheap ones, you can barely see that line. I was even questioning if it was there. But then the digital one said pregnant and I just thought I was going crazy, honestly. The following day at 11 DPO, I repeated the tests again, like one does. No, it was later that day. I'm not calm when it comes to this. So later that day, I went to the pharmacy and I bought 2 more tests. I bought the quick, clear, blue 1 minute one, where you just have to wait 1 minute and it shows you a cross or doesn't. And here's the picture of it. You can clearly, on this one, you can clearly see it's a positive result. And I had also gotten the digital, the one that says the weeks. And oh my god, it said 1 to 2. And I was like, what is happening? Because I couldn't believe my eyes, because the other cheap ones, the line was so faint. Anyway, so the beginning of this pregnancy has been filled with lots of anxiety because, I don't know, I had a chemical pregnancy once and I just kept being worried that the line was going to disappear because it was so faint. The following day I did another of the cheap ones. The line is there, but again, as you can see, it's so faint, and yeah, I couldn't believe it. So then I did what one does and I kept testing every day, and I wanted to bring my little notepad and show you, but of course I forgot. So I'm gonna insert here a picture of how it looks at the moment. I think today is like 18 DPO and like it's clearly positive at the moment, but at 12 DPO the line was still so faint and I couldn't shake the feeling that with my previous pregnancy the line was much darker by now, by 12 DPO. So I was super worried. I booked an appointment with an actual OBGYN and I got seen like literally 2 days after I booking my appointment, and she did an early scan, and at this point it was like 4 weeks. So she did the normal scan and she couldn't find anything, so she did one of those internal ones and she couldn't find anything either. Now she's of course that sends me in a freak out rabbit hole, but she said it doesn't mean it's not there, it just means it's too early, because according to our maths it's only 4 weeks, right? So she sent me for beta blood tests, which is basically you do one blood test one day, it measures your beta HCG, so your pregnancy hormone. I got 85, whatever unit it is, and then you repeat it exactly 48 hours later at that same time and everything, and it measures the same thing again. And the idea is that the value needs to be at least double, so double or more, in order to indicate a healthy pregnancy, a healthy growth. Anyway, so I did it 48 hours later. Waiting for these results is excruciating. I don't know if you've ever done a beta HCG, but oh my god. Anyway, so on the second one I got 200. I needed at least 170. That was my double. I got 200, which obviously is consistent with a healthy growth of the embryo, and I'm really excited, and I'm trying to be excited. I am so excited that this is happening, but I'm still so anxious about it all and so nervous and so worried that something is going to go wrong. Anyway, I'm in the car now because I'm on my way to my second appointment with her. It's been a week since she done a scan, so I think she's gonna attempt and do another scan today, and let's see if she can find it now that it's a bit older. With my first pregnancy we did a first scan at 6 weeks and 1 day or something, and they managed to see it from an internal scan, and they even found the heartbeat straight away. So let's see if that's the case. I'll show you some pictures if it is. I can't believe this is happening. I wish I had some like cool reactions of like reacting to the pregnancy test, but I don't know, it was so different from last time. Last time I was crying and excited, and this time I was excited, but I couldn't believe my eyes. Like the whole thing made no sense. I'm not gonna repeat myself. I'm gonna get going before I get late to my appointment, and I'll give you some updates when I have them. Bye. Okay, I just got out of my exam. She couldn't find anything again, and I'm trying to be positive, but it's so difficult when it's been 2 scans and there's nothing there. And I'm starting to think, am I crazy? Am I imagining things? So after the appointment, I went to the pharmacy and I bought one of those clear blue tests that show you the weeks. Previously, I've done it and it said 1 to 2 weeks. Now it said 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm using that as reassurance that there's something there. Multiple tests, I've picked it up and it's growing. The lines of the cheap ones that I've been doing every day are getting darker, even though the last 3 days it kind of stalled and they all just look equally dark in the last 3 days. I haven't done one yet today. And now this one, it went from 1 to 2 to 2 to 3. So it's also increasing. Honestly, early pregnancy anxiety is something from another level. I'm coming back in 2 weeks for one more scan. By then, I'll be 8 weeks, according to my last period. But the doctor said that at 8 weeks, it needs to 100% be visible, like there's no chance it won't. And if it's not, then it means there's something wrong and we need to investigate and see what's going on. But it should be there, it should be visible, and then she will be able to measure it and date it, which in the UK they only do at 12 weeks. But here she explained they like to do it as early as possible because then they want to do the 12-week exam exactly at 12 weeks. As of in the UK, sometimes it's a few days early or late because they haven't dated it yet, which makes sense. Anyway, so in 2 weeks, I'm here again for another scan, and oh my god, 2 weeks. I know it's not that long, but it's so long. 2 weeks. It feels like an eternity away, to be honest. I feel different this time versus the first one. Like, I'm very anxious and I'm very nervous and I want it all to be okay and everything, but it's like I'm not as desperate because I already have one baby. So it's not like I'm waiting to become a mom. I am already a mom, but I don't even know why I'm saying this, because if the results are negative, I'll still be devastated. What I'm trying to say is that my anxiety is different. I have a different type of anxiety this time around. But nonetheless, it's still anxiety and it's still very nerve-wracking. Okay, I'll see you in 2 weeks and we'll have an embryo to show you.
Now that you know how I found out that I was pregnant this time around, like I said, we are already on the 3rd trimester. There's only a few more weeks to go. And let me tell you what has happened meanwhile. I've been to the hospital twice in this pregnancy. One of them, trying to think if I have record. I don't know. One of them wasn't very dramatic. I was having some side aches. It was in the beginning of the 2nd trimester at some point. And pregnancy follow-up in general is very different here in Portugal than it was in the UK. So I'm still to this point learning how the system works here. But basically there's this phone number you need to call. And then there's 3 hospitals in my area, but only one of them is open each time, like maternity wise. So you have to call and they will tell you which one to go to. So I did that in the afternoon around 3 p.m. saying I was experiencing this pain, but it was nothing too dramatic, right? So they told me which hospital it was open, and I kept that information in the back of my mind, but I ended up not doing anything. I just tried resting. I didn't take paracetamol or anything because that's something I try to avoid during pregnancy in general, but I didn't do anything and I just waited for the pain to pass because like I said, it was more like a stitch pain. It was nothing too serious. I was still able to move around. It was just uncomfortable and it was weird because it was persistent. But around 10 or 11 p.m. the pain was still there and I was thinking to myself, I don't really want to go to bed under these conditions because I've been having this pain the whole time. I can still feel the baby moving around, but I don't know, I was worried I was having appendicitis or something. Even though I think the appendix is on the other side. I did ask ChatGPT about that. But either way, I ended up going to the hospital with my husband around 10 or 11 p.m. That hospital was 45 minutes drive away. So off we went, and that was my first experience with emergency care maternity wise in here, and I wasn't too impressed. First of all, I had to go in all by myself. They didn't allow my husband in. We were waiting in the waiting room. First of all, back to the beginning, we were in the waiting room for ages before they called me in, even though the service had referred me to that hospital, so my name was already on the list that I was going to show up. But yeah, it was just weird. We waited for, I don't know, maybe half an hour, and I thought it was really weird because I was pregnant and complaining of abdominal pain, and I got there and they just kept me waiting. What if something more urgent was happening? So I wasn't too impressed by that. But then when they finally called me, we both stood up and they were like, oh no, you need to wait here in the waiting room. She needs to go in alone. Which again, I wasn't too impressed because they're gonna run tests on you, and what if they find something is wrong and they need to deliver hard news or something? You're gonna basically get those news all by yourself. And I'm a strong independent woman, but not that much, to be honest. Either way, I had to go in alone. I had no choice. And in terms of the medical care, I was very surprised. It was very different from the UK. They did a bunch of tests. They did vaginal exam. They did an internal ultrasound to check on the uterus condition and to make sure it was not dilating or anything. They did a normal ultrasound to check on baby, which was nice because I got to see the baby. But then again, I was alone, so my husband didn't get to see the baby that day. But they checked heart rate and all those things, and the umbilical cord and the placenta status, literally all the things. And they also did a urine exam just to check for infections, which came back negative. And then basically they were like, there's nothing wrong with you, you know, go home, take some paracetamol, and if for some reason the pain continues in a few days or if it gets worse, then you need to come back. But at the moment everything is good, both with you and the baby. So like I said, that's what happened. I just went home and the next day I was fine, which was weird. I never understood where that pain came from, why I was having it, but it was there, and then it wasn't all good. It was never very dramatic. And then the second incident that I had with this pregnancy, that one was way more dramatic and scary. Basically, I was staying at my parents' with TJ for the night. I don't remember exactly why, but Josh was here in our house with the dog. I think I was there just because, yeah, I remember now. I was there because TJ hadn't moved in here yet. So this must have been either late January or beginning of February, I guess. So TJ was still there because the house wasn't toddler ready yet. So every now and then I would go spend the night there just, you know, to look after my son. Because obviously during the days we were busy sorting the house out. Anyway, so I was there that night, and around 4 a.m. I got up like one does to go to the bathroom and do my 4 a.m. wee. All was fine. I came back to bed, and when I lay down, I had the most intense pain, like all over the bottom part of my belly, like under the belly button, but like on both sides in the middle, like all over the bottom half. And it was intense. Like I couldn't move. I was laying in bed, because it was literally when I laid down. I was laying in bed and I couldn't move, and I was trying to focus on my breathing, and I was waiting for it to pass. It was 4 a.m., right? And TJ was asleep in the crib in the same bedroom as me, so you know, I'm not gonna start shouting. But it was intense. Like I was scared, and after a good 10 minutes, it was still as intense as it was, if not worse. So I thought, okay, this is not normal. So I had to wake up my parents. I had to ring them, because obviously I couldn't just shout for them, because then I would wake up TJ. So I had to ring them at 4 a.m. And obviously they saw it was me, so they came into the room straight away asking what was wrong. And I said, I'm in a lot of pain. I can't move. Like I couldn't even like flip my body to the other side of the bed. That's how bad it was. And you know, nothing was happening. I wasn't bleeding or anything, and I had just gone to the toilet, and everything was normal in that perspective as well. So the whole thing was very weird. We waited another like 5 minutes. They were like, how long have you been like this? And the pain wasn't going away. So we were like, okay, right, let's call the number that we need to call and see which hospital is open. This was at 4 a.m., right? And then that number, they took a good 25 minutes to half an hour just to pick up the phone. My parents were panicking, thinking maybe we should just call emergency numbers and ask for an ambulance or something, because like you cannot even move. I was trying to remain calm, but obviously I was freaking out. I was there all by myself. I was with my parents, but my husband wasn't there. It was a very stressful half an hour. Eventually they did pick up, and my mom was actually the one speaking to them, because I was in so much pain at that point that I could barely speak. And I think they were convinced that I was having contractions, even though I kept saying these are not contractions. Like I've had another baby before. These are not even Braxton Hicks. It's not a wave, you know. It's just permanent, constant pain. They sent me to the hospital, and obviously at that point I had rang my husband for him to wake up, but then I couldn't really talk, so I was texting him saying I'm in a lot of pain. My parents are taking me to the hospital. Will they meet me there? So he drove to the hospital, and he got there shortly after we did. And when we got in, I got admitted to triage straight away, and surprisingly they let my husband go in with me that time. It was a different hospital, but they did let him go with me that time. I don't know if it was because the situation was slightly different, I don't know. But guys, I could barely walk at that point. Like I was in a lot of pain. I could barely walk, and they were examining me and using one of those Dopplers to find the baby's heartbeat, and they were struggling to find the baby's heartbeat, and they kept asking, when was the last time you felt your baby move? And obviously me and my husband were both freaking out, like what is happening? Eventually they found it, and I had felt the baby move like maybe an hour before or so we weren't that worried about something like that. But yeah, eventually they found the heartbeat, and the heartbeat was fine, so they just admitted me for more exams. Well, they didn't really admit me. They just said, okay, let's run more tests. And again, the medical care was amazing. They did everything. They did urine tests again to check for any infections. This time they even did blood tests to check if there was anything wrong with me. They did an ultrasound again on the baby. They did a vaginal exam, but also They did two vaginal things. They did a vaginal exam and a vaginal something else. But they were basically, again, checking that I was not in labor. They put those bands around my belly to check for contractions, which then they said, you're not having contractions. And I was like, seriously, I know. And they even gave me some fluids, because they were saying it could be dehydration. So while they were waiting for the blood test results, let's just put you on some fluid. So I sat there for a while with just fluids in my arm. And eventually the pain kind of dulled down a bit. It was still hurting, but it was not as intense. They gave me some paracetamol as well, because I was clearly in a lot of pain and they could see that. And we ended up being there for a good 3 or 4 hours. Always in the waiting room, like between exams. So I wasn't admitted. I didn't have a room or a bed or anything. So I would go do an exam, come back to the waiting room, wait to be called. But we were there for a few hours. And then again, by the end of it, they were like, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with the baby. You don't have any infections. Your blood is normal. You're not dehydrated. You know, go home and take paracetamol. Which, in that situation, scared me a bit, because that pain, it was very intense. It was, as you've heard from my description. But if there was nothing wrong, there was nothing wrong. So we went home, they told me to rest as much as possible, and so I did. But that situation was scary. I think I was about maybe 28 weeks or so at that moment. So they were like, it's too soon for this baby to come. And I was like, yes, I know, but I don't think I'm in labor. I think it's something else. They couldn't find a cause for the pain, and they were saying sometimes it just hurts. You know, second pregnancies are very different from the first one. So sometimes you just get pains that you didn't with the first one. So maybe that's what it was. And those were the two major incidents that I had on this pregnancy. Besides that, everything has been going fine. In the second trimester, I did notice that compared to my first pregnancy, I had more aches in general. Like I had these short sharp pains, like stab-like. When I moved, like in bed or something, I'd feel like a stab, which when I asked my doctor, they said it's normal. And again, second pregnancies come with more pain usually and more discomfort. And in general, I had more discomfort. Although, I must say that with my first pregnancy, I had a lot of back pain because of the position of the baby. And with this one, so far, my back has been fine, except when I try putting him to bed, and if I have to rock him for too long, then my back starts complaining. But in general, my back has been fine. But I've been finding myself very tired as well. I have really strong anemia, which didn't happen with my first pregnancy. But this time around, it has happened. And I've tried a bunch of different medications that have been prescribed to me, and none seem to be doing anything. So there's that. I have really strong anemia, which means I'm very tired all the time and always needing a nap. Which then, of course, having a toddler doesn't exactly help with that. But I'm very lucky that I have a very good support network. So both my husband and my parents have been pinching in a lot and helping me look after TJ, so that I can try and get as much rest as possible. This time around, we discovered the sex of the baby at the 12-week scan. It was great. That doctor was amazing, and he was so detailed, so much more detailed than the 12-week scan was at the NHS in the UK. We were very impressed. And the doctor spoke English as well, so Josh could follow up the scan live. He was there, but I didn't have to translate. The doctor was just speaking English to both of us. Then she asked us, would you like me to have a look at the down there area and see if I can see anything? And we were like, oh yeah, please go ahead. And then she saw it and she was like, I think I know what it is. Would you like to know? And we were like, okay, yeah, go on, tell us. So it's one of those things. Again, for the first pregnancy, you do all of these things. And for the second, we were just like, yeah, just tell us. Anyway, so at that point, the doctor goes like, I'm pretty sure it's a girl. And we were like, oh my God, are you sure? Like, how sure are you? Is it too early to tell? And she was explaining how usually at 12 weeks, they cannot be really certain because the shape of it might still evolve. But because of the position our baby was in, she was getting a very clear view. So she was like, I'm pretty sure it's a girl. So we got very excited. We bought a pajama saying little sister, and that's how we told my parents that it was a girl. And then later on I had more exams on the private healthcare, more scans I mean. Like I had another one like 2 weeks later or something, or 3 weeks later. And I asked the doctor as well to have a look and tell me, what do you think it is, just to confirm? Because I don't know, for a while I had a really hard time believing it was in fact a girl. Again, she said, I think it's a girl. And we were like, oh my God. Then we had the 20-week scan, which should be called 22-week scan here because that's when they do it, which is the second official one. And we went for that, and at that one, that's also the anatomy scan, so it's a long scan. They're checking for a bunch of things. But to be fair, the 12-week scan that we done, they checked a bunch of things as well, so that was very long as well. So we did that. And we managed to get them to record the scan, which was very nice. So we have footage of it. And again, we asked the doctor, because it was a different one, what do you think it is? And she said, it's a girl, congratulations. And we were like, oh my God, that's like 3 different people now in 3 different moments in time confirming it's a girl. So, you know, we're pretty confident that it's gonna be a girl. Imagine if after all of this, the baby comes out and they're like, congratulations, it's a boy, which there's nothing wrong with it, but I feel like I would need a minute to adjust at this point. And everything was good with the baby. He was on 50th percentile, which was exactly the same we had with TJ the whole pregnancy, and even nowadays he's still on 50th percentile. And everything was perfect, and eventually I moved to public follow-up only instead of the private, so that's what I've been doing. Then blood tests. In here you do the diabetes, the gestational diabetes test as standard as well. In the UK you don't, unless you have any factors contributing to it, but I did that. It's horrible, as everyone says. It was negative, which is good, so I've been fine. The only thing that I have is the anemia, like I mentioned. And now recently we did the 3rd trimester scan, which is the 3rd and last official scan, and it was yet another doctor, but she checked everything and the baby was fine, and we got to see her face, because her face was like facing out on my belly, so when she put the thingy there she could literally see her face. I'll put it here on the screen so you can see her eyes and her mouth, and she had her mouth open at some point, and we were told she has a lot of hair and that she has big cheeks. So just like her mama, I guess. I don't know, we're very excited. Because this might be our last baby, that means that that one was also potentially our last scan. So that makes me a little bit emotional, not going through this ever again. Because even though this pregnancy has been a bit more tricky for me compared to the first one, and bear in mind this is still a very easy pregnancy, and lots of women have way worse pregnancies. Like I had no sickness or anything in the first trimester. Like pregnancies on me go very easy, and so I love it. If that's not your experience, I think it's normal for some people not to enjoy it. But I really enjoy being pregnant, and I think it's something amazing that my body does, and it makes me so proud of my body, even though on the postpartum you always hate your body a little bit because, you know, it gets weird. But in general, I love being pregnant, so it makes me a little bit emotional thinking that I'm never gonna do this again. But everything is very exciting, and she's gonna be here very soon. I'm not mentally prepared. Last time I had a really difficult postpartum phase. Lots of things happened to me. I think I mentioned it briefly on my labor story, but the labor itself was fine-ish. So I'm not too scared about labor this time. I'm way more scared about the postpartum and what comes after, because, you know, ignorance is a bliss, and once you've gone through it, you don't get to go through it again not knowing what it feels like, which is a bit scary. But again, that's not the point of this video. I just wanted to share and have some record of everything that has been going on, because I haven't been keeping record of it in any other form besides the odd photos that I try and take, and I wanted, even for myself, to have this record of the things that have happened. So that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching if you made it all the way here. If you have any questions, then let me know in the comments on how we got here, or any details that I've missed, or literally anything. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I'll let you know the answer if it's something that I'm willing to share. But otherwise, I'll see you very soon here on the channel with another video. Bye. Oh, and of course I cannot finish the video without giving you a bump date. So this is how you're looking like at the moment. Okay, bye.